Man, where do I begin? It's so good to be with you. I'm very honored. I can't say it enough. I'm very honored to be your shepherd and to wash your feet. I pray that the Lord would give me the grace that his face would shine upon mine in order for him to be glorified. Let's make a deal from now that Christ is the good shepherd, and we as the priests are here to take from him in order to give to you. But we always need to keep our focus and our eyes on the good shepherd, because he is the one that cares for our souls, and we are to take your hands and to connect you to him and step aside. So that is the role of us as clergy, and I pray that we can live up to that. All the stories that I have and the people that I encountered, truly the saints that I encountered in my time, you would be just truly shocked. So it all started when I arrived in Egypt, and I had had this great desire to meet Abuna Lazarus El Antoni, Father Lazarus St. Anthony. Father Lazarus is an anchorite. He lives alone with himself in St. Anthony's monastery. He's a former atheist, and he was a professor of philosophy. And he came to know Christ. And if you ever watched CYC, there's large documentaries about him which are fascinating. You really should watch them. And I was really desiring to meet him, because I know he's a blessing, and I personally firsthand got the opportunity to take his blessing, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. He was in St. Anthony's monastery. I was going to St. Bishoy's monastery in Wadi Natrun, and how am I going to get from Wadi Natrun to the Red Sea? So I got there, and my first day, I arrived. I was sitting with the chef. I like always to sit with people who are serving in places, because those are the people that know everything. If you want to know what's going on in a place, go find el-tabikh, el-ummal, and you will learn everything about a place. And also you'll take their blessing, because they spent a lot of time with amazing people, and they'll tell you all the great stories about the saints that they've encountered. So I'm sitting at a table with Chef Mina, and I'm asking him, what's it like to serve in the monastery. And I'm like, what? And all of a sudden, Abuna Lazarus comes in through the door, grabs food, and I say, Hi, Father Lazarus. I'm your son, Elijah. It's very nice to meet you. He goes, oh, you speak English. It's so nice to speak to you. So I proceeded to ask him if I can pray liturgy. Now remember, yesterday I was in America. I don't know my right hand from my left hand in terms of liturgy. I don't know how to pray. Nobody's taught me anything. I only know the responsibilities of a deacon, but I have zero idea how to pray a liturgy as a priest. So the next day, I pray liturgy with him. And the whole entire time, he has his hand on my back, and he's showing me what to do during the liturgy. I'll tell you two things that I learned from Father Lazarus. His immense love for St. Mary. If anyone knows his story, what part of his coming to faith was he had lost his mother, and he was very brokenhearted about the loss. So he found himself one day at a church, and he saw people greeting St. Mary and lighting a candle. So he said, you know what, let me just go and do the same thing. So he went, and he started to light a candle, and when he was praying, he said, I know people call you mother, but I lost my mother, and I have no mother. And he heard a voice very loud and clear that said, I will be your mother. So he's looking around. He thought he was losing his mind or something. And he said, was that you, St. Mary? And she said, yes, I will be your mother. Very loud, very clear. So from that moment on, Father Lazarus had a very intimate relationship with St. Mary, and he calls her Mama. Mama. So one of the things that I watched him do during liturgy is he would take a picture of St. Mary and put it right in front of the kes, and anytime St. Mary's name would be mentioned, he would kiss it. And then during the part where he would take the incense and put it, and when it says was incarnate, he would take the incense and he would put it on top of the picture, and then he would pour it into the shoria, which was very beautiful. The moral of the story for me, what I learned from Father Lazarus, was his immense, first of all, devotion to Christ, and second of all, his relationship with the saints. His incredible love for the saints, and specifically St. Mary, that he has a relationship with her of that as a son with his mother. We often have this idea that the heavenly is far from the earthly. But I tell you, during this time period in Egypt, I witnessed firsthand where the heavenly literally is with the earthly, especially during liturgy. Especially during liturgy. We have this idea that the saints are far from us, but every time, somebody told me something when I first got ordained, they said, Abuna, when you pray, you will see how the Lord will answer your prayers, especially in the first 40 days of your priesthood. It's like a honeymoon where the Lord wants to give you that which your heart desires. So I found myself praying for crazy things. I was just like, you know what, let me pray for things that I never even thought to pray for. And I prayed that I would meet Father Lazarus, and the first day when I arrived, he was there waiting for me. So it was very beautiful. So that's day one. The second day, and I'm not going to go through all 40, don't worry, that will take us to... We'll take till next year if I go through all 40. I was really blessed in that there was a group of priests that were ordained on the 2nd of July by His Holiness. And I was, I'm an American, I'm going to Egypt, I'm not really sure what it's going to be like. And God orchestrated literally the perfect priests to walk me through my first 10 days. I'm telling you, I'm not a good deacon, I'm not very good in terms of like my liturgical, sort of gifts. We have many blessed priests in this church that are very gifted. I scratch the surface and I pray that God will cover me when I pray. And the first week, he paired me with these priests that were ordained on the 2nd of July, and they all happened to be priests that were ordained to do missions. One that was going to Gabon, Africa, one that was going to Zimbabwe, one that was going to Ghana. Now, if anyone knows, I love Africa. My life was changed in Africa, and the mission in Africa is very, very dear to me. So the first priest, and then the last priest, was a priest that served literally the penniless in Egypt, the poorest of the poor. So the people that I was paired with, again, God ordained this, were priests that were missionaries and priests that served the least of the brethren. And I learned so much from these priests. I also encountered a priest who was visiting and taking a retreat, who served in a town in Egypt that ISIS dwells in. And this priest was ordained to replace a priest who was killed. And this priest, when he spoke about service, he's like, Ya Abuna, wala haga, mafish haga, احنا مش خايفين من أي حاجة. I'm not scared of anything. I'm like, you're not scared? The priest who you were serving with was slaughtered. What are you doing? And I felt that when I was sitting amongst these priests that were going to serve in the far places of the world and serving the penniless and serving in places where ISIS dwell, I was like, man, I'm really, really, really thankful to God that He knows my weakness and He put me in Fairfax, Virginia. Fairfax, Virginia. But truly, it's amazing to see the things that people are willing to do for Christ. When you watch these men and their families, their wives, who are willing to uproot their lives, willing to give up everything and move to a faraway country in which they don't know the language, they don't know the people, they don't know the culture, but for their deep devotion and love for Christ, they're willing to give up everything to serve Him. My question for every single one of you is, what are you willing to do in your own capacity? Nobody's asking you right now, maybe some of you, maybe in the future, will be called to a higher call. But in your specific context, what is God asking you to do to build the kingdom of heaven? What is God asking you to do to make His name glorified in every place that you enter? I was really inspired. I found myself sitting with these priests and thinking to myself, man, I literally have done nothing compared to these people. And they would look at me and they'd be like, "Yeah, أبونا أنت تخدم في أمريكا في أمريكا فيها شر كتير." They would think as though America's like, Sodom and Gomorrah, which in some ways we can't totally disagree with them, but in other ways I told them about the saints of St. Mark. I told them about the beautiful church that I serve in, for the many people who labored before me to build this amazing church. And I'm just coming in to, be the sidekick to every single one of them. I'll give you just a few more stories. I'm looking through my pictures to get context. The priest who happened to be the one who would teach us, his name was Father Jacobus. And Father Jacobus was a beautiful, beautiful man. His devotion and his love to the church and to the rites of the church made me fall in love with the rites of the church. And in fact, every single time he would speak about something or a touch of the church, he would always look at me and say, "Ya Abuna ma ta'rafsh, you have no idea why the church put this and the beauty of this." And he would always tell me, if you respect the altar will respect you. If you respect the mysteries of the church will respect you. Take all your problems, take all your struggles, take all your difficulties, and bring them before the Lord at the altar, and you will see how good the Lord is. One thing that Abuna Jacobus did, which was really nice, he told me when I first arrived, he said, "Ya Abuna," and he spoke to me in English, but it was kind of broken English, but he did his best. It was great English. I can't say anything bad about Abuna Jacobus. But he said to me, "أبونا أنا هكلمك طول الوقت بالعربي. خلاص, no more English." And I would say, "Why أبونا? I need to learn English." "No أبونا, no English. أنت بقيت أبونا للكل. مش أبونا للإنجليش speakers." So I said, "أبونا, my Arabic is so broken." He's like, "لا, أنت هتتعلم في ال40 يوم مش هتكلم كلمة إنجليزي طول الوقت." So he literally proceeded to teach me everything in Arabic, but he let me pray in English, which I really respected him about that. He's like, "I'm going to speak to you in Arabic, but I know it's going to be hard for you to pray in Arabic, so pray in English, and over time you'll learn how to pray in Arabic. You'll get the English transliteration, and you'll pray." But I love the fact that he understood the importance of the context in which I was going to be serving in, and he gave me the privilege of being able to do so. Just a few more stories. I will be very honest with you. Before I went to Egypt, I had a very bad perspective of what monasticism was. I thought monasticism was running away from the world because you're scared or worried about your salvation. When I went to Egypt, boy, was I smacked in the face and taught the lesson of you idiot, you dummy. You have no idea about how beautiful the monks in the world are. And these men and these monks and these nuns are truly the ones that are carrying the world through their prayers. Truly. But each monk has a specific job. They're not just praying all day. They are praying all day, but in the midst of their work and in the midst of... And I encountered a monk. I won't say his name, but he was incredible. He was basically a CEO of a dairy manufacturing in Mbabishoy, and he had hundreds of cows in which this monk knew nothing about dairy. But he educated himself, learned the intricacies of how the temperature of the milk, the cow's temperature, when a cow would sleep, all these different details. And his ministry, or his work in the monastery, covered all of the expenses of the monastery, and the milk that was produced from this monastery in Mbabishoy was considered the second best manufacturer of dairy in all of Egypt. That even the president and all the people would come visit the monasteries and would give accolades for the work that the monks were doing. And I was fascinated by this. Not just this priest, but so many other priests who came up with this. Have you guys ever heard of 3 Mac? Anyone who's visited Egypt? 3 Mac. The three Me'eris. The 3 Me'eris is an ice cream dairy company from Deir Abu Ma'ar, and they have the best vegan ice cream I've ever tasted in my life. If you go to Egypt, you must try 3 Mac vegan ice cream. They have mango, they have farola, they have chocolate. It's fantastic. It is Abuna. Guys, can we just make room for the visitors? If there are seats next to you, please squeeze in. Squeeze in. There's a seat right here as well, also. So what I learned is that the monks, they're carrying the world through their prayers, but they're also still contributing very much to their world and to the context in which they live. And this monk that I encountered was just one amongst many other monks who were doing amazing things to glorify God and to lift up the name of the Coptic Church in Egypt. To lift up the name of the church in Egypt, where this monastery was producing enough milk that European countries were coming and meeting to make them the manufacturer and the distributor of the milk throughout Egypt. It's amazing. So I was taught a lot from the monks in terms of their perspectives, in terms of their ongoing contribution to the world. 2 more stories. So I was really lucky in the fact that during the time period in which I was in Egypt, the Deir Babashoy, there was the World Youth retreat. It was like a 7-day retreat where all the youth from all over the world came, and they basically attended a meeting with His Holiness, a bunch of lectures, and they traveled all over Egypt, where they would, the goal was His Holiness wanted the youth to come back to their roots, to take from the roots of the church and to go back and to be able to share with the world the things that they learned in Egypt. We had 3 youth from the area, 4 youth from the area, which I got to hang out with while I was there. And one thing that I did was at night, I sat with the youth. So the first thing that I asked these youth is I wanted to get a sort of a survey. I asked them, what do they desire from a priest? Like if they could dream or wish their heart's desire for what a priest would be, what would they ask for? What do you guys think they said? What do you guys think? Give me guesses. Huh? Okay, give me you got the answer right away. You gave me no quick answer. But you would expect, very good, Mina, very good, honestly. You would expect they would say a good speaker. You would expect they would say somebody who is cool and could relate to us. Someone who is felt like that was a really good lesson for me to learn, because I pray that every single one of us as priests would grow into the fatherhood of God. That when you would encounter us, you would see the fatherhood of God, and we would be able to serve you in the way that the Lord sees you need to be served. Not in the way you want to be served, in the way the Lord sees that you need to be served to draw near to Him. And I found that the time that I spent with this youth, I also got to spend time with a lot of PKs, priest kids. And each of the priest kids that I spent time with, I asked surveys, what did your dad do to make you feel like you were cared for? What did your dad do to make you feel like you belonged to the church and you could still connect? And every single one of them told me that the priests made their families a priority. A priority. And every monk that I spend time with, believe it or not, this is weird. Every monk that I spend time with him, said to me, Abuna, if you don't take care of your family first and foremost, your service will suffer. Your service will suffer. And you will not be able to give anything to your congregation if you yourself aren't serving your family. And all the PKs that I met demonstrated that to me. The ones that I met that really their fathers took this to heart were the ones that grew up, loved the church, served the church, were continuing to contribute to the church, and were the ones that didn't have a bitter taste in their mouth towards the church. So we as the congregation need to, I'm not saying that Abuna is going to be hanging out with his family all the time and neglect the flock, I'm saying that Abuna is going to do everything in his power to serve his family and serve his church family as well. But if he has problems at home, he's not going to be able to serve the problems that are going to come with you. So every single monk and bishop that I encountered started with that message to me. And I felt like that was personal for me. And I want to share that with you, not because I'm telling you that this is what I'm setting your expectation, but I want you to know that we have been entrusted with a mystery, the mystery of marriage, the mystery of the family, and then we've been entrusted the mystery of the priesthood. So pray for us that we would be good fathers to our families in order to be good fathers to you. Finally, when I went to, His Holiness was really, really, really sweet with me. When I met with him, it was really cool because where I was staying was Logos, which is the Maqar al-Babawiyya, or the papal residence. And I would see the Pope every day, basically. So I would talk to him, randomly bump into him, and ask him questions. So one of the questions that I asked him is, I asked him the question that I asked the youth. I said, Sayyidina, what is your dream and your desire for a priest in North America? With the quickness, he had an answer. I was like, and his answer was beautiful. He said the East, the Eastern world, is the heart. It's where all worship began. It's where philosophies, it's where all spirituality, it's where all major religions were cemented. So the East is the heart. And the Western world is the mind. It's where scientific method, it's where science, theory, all these different things came to be. He said the job of a good priest is to connect the East with the West, to be a bridge. He said, especially in North America, you have the role and the responsibility of connecting the heart with the mind, with the East and from the West. And I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful answer. I asked him, now how do I do that, Abuna? How do I do that, Sayyidina? And somebody interrupted us and we didn't get to finish the conversation. To be continued. The next 40 days, We are really, really lucky to have His Holiness Pope Tewodros. Truly. And I'm not saying that just because I got this. Truly, he is a visionary. He's a leader. He sees the world with a very good lens. And his desire is for people to take from the Mother Church and to see the beauty of the Mother Church and bring it to wherever they go and wherever they dwell. Finally. So His Holiness told me to travel across different monasteries. So he said, Abuna, it's me and Fash. I'll tell you a funny story, actually. When I was meeting with him, he said about the priests of St. Mark's. He said, Ya Abuna, Inta fik baraka kabira ashen, Inta btikhdem ma kahana gomel. He said this. He knew the priests of St. Mark's, and he said, the priests of St. Mark's are amazing priests. And I said, yes, Sayyidina, ana mahzuz. Means I'm lucky. And he laughed at me because the word is not mahzuz. Mahzuz apparently means to be cut up or something. So he laughed at me. He's like, Abuna, mish mahzuz, mahzuz. Mahzuz means lucky. So before I made a fadiha of myself before the Pope, he told me to go travel to different monasteries and to take the blessing of the monasteries. And everywhere that I traveled and got an opportunity to spend time with the monks, boy, did I see how rich our church is. Boy, did I see how amazing the monks and the bishops and the clergy and the people of Egypt and the devotion that our church has. I attended one midnight praises and liturgy that was 5 hours in blistering heat. No air condition, nothing. And by hour 2.5, I was like dying. Legitimately, like my back was hurting. I'm trying to figure out a way to get out, but I'm stuck. And I'm telling the priest who was with me, I was like, Abuna, Allah samhak, we got here so early for no reason. And he's falling asleep. He's knocked out in the middle of the service. But I saw monks in their 80s, standing for 5 hours with absolute devotion, with absolute sincerity of heart while praying to the Lord, as if they see the Lord in front of them. I saw monks, when they would pray and they would look up, their eyes would roll back, because they were as if they say that those who pray and their eyes roll back, I learned this, I didn't know it before, they say that their eyes are always up towards the heavens. So I saw monks, when they would pray, it was as though they were standing before God. And the devotion that they had for the mysteries of the church, the sacraments, the devotion that they had for the beauty of the church was amazing. I just pray that every single one of us would know truly how lucky we are to have the heritage and the church that we have. And I'm not saying that just to say it. I'm saying if you haven't had the opportunity to go to Egypt, if you haven't had the opportunity to visit the monasteries, if you haven't had the opportunity to sit with different fathers in Egypt, go. Go. Forgive me, but when I talked to His Holiness at the end, the last day, I said goodbye to him. I said, Sayyidina, I really believe the 40 days in Egypt should be mandatory for all priests ordained in North America. I don't think that I would have had this. God bless the monasteries in America. We have thousands of years of heritage in Egypt. Thousands of years of teaching that was passed down from generation to generation through these fathers. There was a bishop that I met that was telling me about how the church was established in Egypt, and how in the era of his youth, there wasn't the spirituality and the tradition that we had. There was a darkness in the church. There was a period where people didn't know, there wasn't much teaching. And he was telling me how he would, as a young man, he would take a bus to a random city, and they would drop them off for 3-4 days, and they would go into these cities, and the people didn't even know Aben Elezi. They didn't even know the Lord's Prayer. And they would spend 3-4 days sharing and teaching the people the faith. And he talked to us about how that started the first generation. And that was in the era of Pope Kyrillos. And Pope Kyrillos started the Nahda in the church, the revival of the church. And from Pope Shenouda, there was a greater revival in the church. And there were bishops and priests and servants, and the teaching of the church was spread throughout the whole entire world. And I said to this bishop, I said, so, Sayyidina, if it wasn't for you all, I wouldn't have my faith. He said, Yani. I said, because of you, Sayyidina, because of the people in your generation where you shared the faith, there was a church in the diaspora. Because of the vision of Pope Kyrillos, he sent the first priests to North America. Because of the vision of Pope Shenouda, he continued to ordain and bishops and priests and continue to spread the word to church to the worldwide. And because of the vision of His Holiness Pope Tewodros, he's now organizing the church and administering the church to make the church flourish and grow. If it wasn't for these people, the Lord inspiring them and the Holy Spirit working in them, we wouldn't have our faith in North America. We may be atheists, we may be Christians of another denomination. If it wasn't for the foresight and the work of the Holy Spirit in these people to be bold, to be courageous, to take risks. Abuna Bishoy Kamil, he left and served in California. Can you think about that? In the culture, imagine how radically different that must have been for Abuna Bishoy, who was a saintly man serving in Alexandria, to come to America and serve in California. We are privileged because we live off the struggles and the burdens of those who came before us. I pray that every single one of us would know how lucky and how blessed we are, again, to have the church that we have. No more stories, I promise. I'm honored to be your shepherd. I'm honored to serve you. I pray that you would pray for me. And I said this yesterday in the speech, but I don't know if you guys heard it. If I make a mistake, I will make mistakes. I promise you that I will make mistakes. I will do my best not to, but I will make mistakes. But if I make mistakes, don't write on Facebook about me. Don't criticize me on Facebook. It's not going to do anything. I'm not going to see it. I'm deactivating Facebook anyway. If I